The next one I want to talk about is SQL. That's the language to access HANA. So the beauty of HANA is that we did all of this stuff completely redesigned from scratch, ground up, and yet from the outside, the interfaces are exactly the same interfaces that people have been using for decades. And here in the Valley, there's a lot of talk about NoSQL and stuff like that. There are like 25 million people around the world who know how to program SQL. There is, tons and tons and tons of usage of SQL. The entire enterprise world and even in the consumer world, all our ability to ask questions, do transactions, basically depends on SQL. So yeah, don't let them fool you. SQL is no less important now than it was ever before. So we support full SQL. So both on the column store and the row store. And both of these have the SQL front end on top of it. It's the ANSI SQL 92 and then subsequent versions of SQL that came in, fully standards compliant, no learning, no special voodoo of ours, no proprietary thing here. This is regular SQL. And beyond SQL, we offer all kinds of additional things. MDX, which is a SQL-like language, started at Microsoft for multidimensional data traversal, especially used in analytics. We support MDX natively inside HANA. We have support for text-oriented things, text functions, and then all kinds of functional enhancements for business functions and so forth, for special syntaxes around that, geographical syntaxes, stuff like that, which sometimes are not in the standard SQL. We also support map reduce operations, which is what typically the NoSQL movement people are so fascinated by. I mean, basically, when you think about it, a map is like a scan that you distribute over a large amount of data. When you want to map an operation, if you want to, let's say, increment everything or do an aggregation over something and add 10% to all your plan or something like that. That is a map operation that applies widely, and we have the map API. Reduce is typically the inverse of that you want to reduce something, you want to do an aggregation, you want to do a filter or something of that sort. So we offer map reduce. In fact, we demonstrated map reduce inside T-Rex at the DCOM in 2006. And then we have the stored procedure language SQL script. We have a native low-level language called L, which is a part of the LLVM. So people can write code, low-level code directly in L and have that be attached into HANA. We have, of course, HANA itself is written in C++, and there are lots of C++ libraries in HANA, the libraries for GIS data, for text data, for what we call the business function library and the predictive analytics library. We integrate R, which is a statistical package in there. We have IMSL. Let's see, all kinds of function libraries like this. And we are coming up with a generic way, what we call the AFL, as a way to integrate anybody's library inside HANA in a safe way. Now, safety here is extremely important because when we insert code like this and it runs, HANA is entirely running in memory. When we insert code like this and run that in the same server, in the same process space as HANA, there is always a danger that bad things can happen. So we have to be really super careful about how this code is integrated into HANA. And that's why we have written some extremely rigorous and strict guidelines of how this code comes into HANA. In the early days of APO, with live cache, we had lots of experience with the system crashing because of corruption of memory and things like that, because the program area of the system and the data area of the system used to collide with each other every once in a while and stuff like that. And so with HANA, we have gone to great lengths to ensure that these kinds of things don't happen. So there are all kinds of libraries like that, but if you are a regular SQL programmer working on any database that you can think of in the world, you can go and without any training whatsoever get up to speed and running on HANA. It's fully standards compliant. So those were 5 of the most important technical aspects of HANA. If I forgot some, the beauty of these MOOCs is that I'll go back and add them later on. So the overall picture, when you think about when you think about the power of HANA, the overall picture that we have sort of looks like this. So you basically have the core, let's say, data types and stores. So these are things like integers and text and geographic data and so on, and strings and things like this. And then these are stored in the row store, in the column store. We also have the graph store that we are working on, and other stores that we can add later on as we think about it. And text we use the column store for. This is also text. And then we have, beyond the core data types and stores, we have the engines that work on these. So these are things like the OLAP engine, calc engine, join engine. We have a special engine for planning, which includes things like aggregations, disaggregations, complex planning oriented operations, holding forecasts and versions of plans in memory and things like this. We have the geographic engine in here and so on. This is also extensible, so we can add more engines here as we go. The graph engine will come here as well, and so on. So there are all these engines that are inside HANA. And then we have SQL. So the SQL plan and execution, planning and execution, and other language support. MDX and the other languages, SQL script and stuff that I talked about. In fact, we have the ability to fully visualize the plans that we make in SQL and interactively be able to change them. These are kinds of amazing things that we have the ability to do in HANA. And then we have all kinds of libraries up here. These libraries are, I already mentioned, these are things like BFL, PAL, text, statistics, hours, others, all kinds of libraries like this. And then HANA is more than a database. It is a platform on which we are building all kinds of platform capabilities. So we started off with something that we call the application services, or the access engine, which includes the language runtime, so support for JavaScript and other languages in there, all kinds of things to manage user sessions, user authentication and authorization, memory for users, and stuff like that. And then we have all kinds of new capabilities from the platform that we are building in here, like the messaging service or master data service for MDM, or data services for extracting, transforming and loading data, or rule engine, and all these things that used to traditionally be in integration platforms or in middleware outside of the database, all are available as extensions and libraries inside HANA. So as you can see, HANA goes far beyond a database and into becoming a real platform for us and for our future. And that is something that is super powerful, that just when the others are starting to think about building in-memory databases, guess what happened in the last 3 years? HANA became a platform.